Well, hello.
Hello. I
Welcome.
love your intro, especially the gold star. I'm
You
a
know,
fan.
that's
I'm a fan.
right. Yeah, it's relatively new. I've only run it, I think, for 2 or 3 episodes, and every time I watch it, I see something else like, I need to fix that little thing right there is off, or I missed an and or something like that. But it's been fun to get to do. And then the one that I have for the unqualified show, the other one that I do, actually has like the picture of the person who's coming on to be the guest. So that's kind of my next thing is like that would be fun to do for this one to do like meet Chelsea and then like meet Beth and do like a quick intro like that. But that's all somewhere living in my brain. It'll happen eventually, I'm sure.
So
Welcome to
many
the
things
show.
live in the brain. So many things are in the brain.
That's very true. Hey Jackie, what's up? Thanks for hanging out with us. So Beth, Beth, here we go. It's backwards. Beth has been hanging out. You've hung out here with me before. Kind of. It's been a while though. Like
It's been a
more
while.
towards
Yeah,
when I
since back
started.
when, yeah, back when we did Leaders Lounge.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, that's right. So it's been a while. But you were here, and that was a lot of fun. So, Beth, you have a lot of really cool things happening right now. So I'm going to give a short intro of what I would say, and then you can fill in the gaps and say what actually you do.
Okay.
But I actually worked for the company that you do now. So Stretch and Grow. I was what was I? I was a coach. I
You
was
were
a
a
coach,
coach. You
right?
were a fitness coach.
Oh my gosh, now I'm a mindset and empowerment coach. So I've like made that I'm back to being a coach. So I'm qualified to be a coach because I did the things. Anyway, so I used to load up my Honda Civic with all of like the hula hoops and the cones and all of the balls and the things and drive around to preschools and early education centers and do fitness classes with the kids. And it was so much fun. Like I loved it. It was such an exciting thing. And it was in between when I worked at a school and then I worked for Stretch and Go and then I went back to work at a school. And it was so cool because I got to see all these different campuses and do lots of different things, which was fun. So you do that, and then you
And we're hiring,
do
by the way. So if this gig doesn't work out, come back to me. We would love to have
right.
you.
It's totally fine. That would be so much freaking fun.
Only if
I
you could find
mean,
that Honda Civic, though.
that
Might be a
might be
little hard with
challenging.
the kids.
That's true, but it was so fun. So it was such a fun thing. And I still remember most of the songs, but there's probably new ones now, I guess. But I really liked the ones that were there then. Anyway, so you do those things, and then you do like training and speaking for early education about like leadership and team building and all those types of really wonderful topics that I love. We've got to speak at some of the same conferences, which is always fun. So yeah, you kind of run the whole early education world in your side. So that's my version of what you do. So now you can come back and say what, the real things.
I mean, you pretty much nailed it. So Stretch and Grow is our kids enrichment program, and I've done that for 23 years. So that was kind of my introduction into early childhood. And then about the last 20 years, I've done not digital education is fairly new, but for about the last 20
Yeah.
years, I've done staff development. I'm the corporate trainer for Stretch and Grow. So basically, I like to teach things. When I know a thing, I like to teach a thing. And so there's so many things that early educators need to know they can do right now. The world has changed, and we were just talking before we came on. Early education has always been very reactive, not very systematized in the way that we do things. Very old school. We are traditionally known for not getting a lot of resources, right?
Yep.
And a lot of training. Like
Yeah.
our teachers know well, like what to do with popsicle sticks and cotton balls.
Absolutely.
But when it comes to culture and team building and how do we act as a family and what is our brand voice and how can we function as a team, there's not really a lot of that out there. So that's been my passion for a really long time, because in my own business, I figured out, like, we talk about like what could go wrong.
Yeah.
It goes back to the training. And I know, like, I'm so embarrassed because I can only imagine the training that you got, because what you probably worked for us, 15 years ago?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, 12, 13
Okay.
at the least.
Long time ago. So back then, when we would have hired you, we would have given you probably a stack of CDs.
Yeah.
And a CD
Was I
player.
supposed to like do those?
No, we don't do those anymore. But when I started, we had cassette tapes. And when I was making copies for my coaches, I did the hold down play and record with the big jam box with the double cassette deck.
Yeah.
So,
I don't even know that I got that. Like, I think my training was like, go and follow this coach around for 2 or 3 days, but we really need you. So follow her, and then we're just going to throw you in. And luckily, that's the way that I learned. But I don't. You use this word training, but I don't know that.
Oh my goodness. Well, and in my defense, I was not your owner, right? You had
That's correct.
Owner. I was not the one, but I've always given my girls a paper manual with a ton of lessons and resources. So I want them to have the resources, a big stack of CDs and lesson plans, and said, pick and choose, do the things that you want to do, and go out there and have fun with the kids. Well, this can be a problem because not everyone is a Chelsea.
That could be a whole other issue.
That's another
we don't
issue.
need too many of those.
So here's the thing. I've learned also, also hiring for energy. Like, you have great energy. So you probably wouldn't need as much training. You probably might not need as much guidance. But now people need guidance. People need training. And so what I experienced is when I would just give people the big manual and some CDs and say, read it all. Make sure you know everything you read, and then go have fun. So then things start to happen like, oh, they like this one lesson with this, and then they're repeating the same thing that's easy because they're not preparing for their classes. They're not teaching the full length of class. They're not having the energy. So all of these things that I needed them to know, think, and do, they weren't doing. And a big thing that came up when we're training people is that, that supervision of kids, right? I mean, this is for early education. So have a coach, she goes to sub, and the director's on the phone, and the director says, oh, hey, the kids are outside. So she takes her little roll sheet, she goes and gets the kids, does the class. The director says they're still outside. She opens the door, all the kids go outside. Well, there was one class that had come back in. The class that came back in had one kid. That little kid got left on the playground because the other teacher collects her kid. She's not paying attention to the one other kid. And that kid's like playing in the sandbox, having a great time.
Having the best time, really. Yeah.
Well, till she realizes she's alone.
Well, yeah.
And starts banging on a window, and horror, thank God she was fine.
Boy.
She was safe. It was only, it literally.
I'm having like director flashbacks. I'm sweating.
Right. So the training didn't work because she didn't read the manual. She didn't. I'm like, what about face to name recognition? What's that? So all I gave her was this manual. So I didn't give her the interactive training tools to walk her through. This is what it looks like when you're transitioning kids. This is the process. And so we all have these processes in our business, whatever that business is. And if we're not training our people, no one's reading that manual, right? 0 people are reading the manual.
No. And I think, so you said some interesting things that I kind of want to touch on. So one, this is like straight back to my roots, right? I've actually been deviating away from early education specifically, and having a lot of different conversations. Like my last conversation was how we can use project-based learning and social justice, right? So I love this conversation because I get to kind of come back to like, this is where my passion for education and leadership and team and all of those types of things was in these conversations of how do we empower the teachers that are accountable for these different things to really have that. Because, in early education in Texas and for other states, but in Texas specifically, which is where I am, we have the minimum standards, so we have to know all of these things and function all these things. And then there's all different standards for like stretch and grow when you go into schools. And so there's just a lot of pieces that have to be running in your head that you have to understand. Like, what is active supervision? What is face and name recognition? What does that look like? How do you operate within that? It's different in early education than it is in a lot of different places. And you can easily, like, if you've been there a long time, you can easily go, this is easy. Like, what do you mean you don't know face name recognition? What do you mean you didn't count your kids before you walked away? Like, what are you saying? But we're taking that for granted. And that's a big thing. Like, there's so many details involved specifically in this type of training. And the other thing that you touched on was hiring for energy, which I think is a really, really interesting concept that before we kind of move on to the rest of it, I'd love to hear you talk a little bit more about, like, what does that look like for you, hiring for energy? How do you find that? What do you look for?
I look for the first thing we do is I just look for interaction, and I start with body language. I am a firm believer that experience is the least important thing when you're hiring someone. I mean, unless you have a position that someone is a nurse or a teacher, you know what I'm saying? Right. Unless there's a specific degree that you have to have, I am big about, I want to know your talents. I want to know your talents. Mm-hmm. I don't care about your experience because I can give you skills and knowledge. I can train you, and I'm a dang good trainer, and I've got great training tools. I can train you now because I've learned over the years.
Right.
But I cannot give you talent to have that energy to deliver the experience, because we're delivering an experience. It's just like we need in your coaching. You know, when you coach someone through mindset, you're bringing them an experience. You're not just giving them a service. It's an experience. They want to experience you, walking them through capturing those negative thoughts. And so, have you heard of the book, The Energy Bus?
Yes. It's been a long time since I've read it, but yes.
So the Energy, it's a book by John Gordon, and he just talks about, like, you're the driver of your bus, and you get to decide who's on your bus, what kind of energy they bring to the bus, and you get to decide who to kick off the ride. And so, you know, just being focused on the energy. So, like, one of the things that we do, like in our group training, for example, this is how you give an example of energy. Okay, let's say we're going to meet each other, and I could care less about you, Chelsea. I don't care if I ever see you again. You're nothing to me. You're no one to me. You're just someone, you know, along in life. So I'd be like, hey, Chelsea, I'm Beth. And you say, hey, Beth, I'm Chelsea. Nice to meet you, right? Then the next exercise is, I want it to be like, you are a rock star. I've been dying to meet you. I want to be your friend. I've been following you on social media. I think you're a super cool chick, and I want to meet you. So now it's like, Chelsea Robertson, oh my gosh, I've waited my entire life to meet you. It is wonderful to meet you. How has my life happened all of these years without you in it? I'm just so excited that you're here. You know, and it's just that energy shift when you want to be there. So it's figuring out, like, does someone want to be here? You know, do you want to be here? And so you watch those interactions. Do they truly love kids? I don't even care about their experience with kids half the time, because it may have been like, well, I babysat, or I did vacation Bible school, or I volunteered here, or I'm an education major. I don't even care if they have formal learning experience, because I can teach them how to do the class. What I want is to see what kind of energy they deliver. So I'm watching for it. I'm looking for it. And you just, you know, I always say there's a lot of characters in the estrogen cloud, right? Like, we have angry Annie, we have bitter Betsy, we have nosy Nancy, we have gossipy Gail, you know, we have whiny Wendy. You know, we have all of these people that are in our spaces that are the energy vampires, right? They suck the life out of you. But what we want is for refreshing people. So I love to do, like, scenario questions, like, tell me about a time you enjoyed a group of children. Or, you know, like with your coaching, you know, tell me about a time that you loved what you did, like your best day at work. Tell me about your best day at work. And you watch them light up. And if they light up and they tell you about, gosh, this is the time that I really loved a group of kids. This is a time when I was in this position. It brought me so much joy, and I loved it, and I made an impact. You see energy. If you can't light that fire under someone and see what excites them, they don't have the energy that I'm going to need them to have for this job.
Or the children are going to need them to have.
For sure.
Those children will take you for everything you're worth.
Yes. The whole life. Like, if they really don't love other people's children, like if I hire them now in October, they hate their life.
Oh, hate their life. Yes, you will hate it. And that was always a conversation that I had when hiring people for just a preschool classroom, especially, like, it's one thing to be you need one type of energy to be a fitness coach and to run around with kids all day and switch between kids and classrooms. That's one energy. It's an additional or a different type of energy to be in a classroom with the same of kids all day, every day, right? That's an energy too. And it was almost like a warning, like, listen, this is going to require so many things of you. But I think it's definitely, I love that concept. I just wanted to kind of rest there for a second, was this concept of hiring for energy. And it actually comes right back to the unqualified conversation that I've been having about, you know, hiring for that energy. I can teach you the skills if you have this basis of, you know, energy and being able to come into it. And I remember when I was directing, we would stand at the door and greet every single child every single morning on the way in, and then their teachers would greet them, whatever. But as they're walking in, and out of habit, I would turn on my, my good morning voice and I'd be like, hey, Beth, oh my gosh, I'm so excited. I love your shirt. I can't believe you're here. I've missed you so much since yesterday. And I can't wait to talk about what you do in your class today. And hey, you brought your mom. That's so exciting, right? And this was this for an hour every morning. This is what's going on. And it was just normal. And I remember like one time my dad was coming to drop something off for me and he walks up and I was like, hey, and he was like, whoa. I didn't even recognize, right, that I had like this container of energy that I was functioning inside of for this purpose. And then he was like, can you turn that off, please, while we talk? And I was like, okay, that's fine. But that is a real thing, is having that ability to kind of step into that and make the children that you're working with understand their value through the way that you're interacting with them. I love that whole concept, but that's not necessarily why we're here, but you said it and I loved it.
Good.
So, all right. So then let's dig into kind of what we're actually talking about. So the topic is no one's reading your rules, and you touched on it. And I think there's two sides of it. So we're going to touch a little bit on, or we're going to talk through like the tangible tactical things that you can do to help bring this information to who you're working with, right? Your team in really whatever industry. And then I'm going to kind of pose some questions about what we've talked about as well. Like, what does it look to create buy-in? What does it look like to create psychological safety for flexibility and those types of things? So kind of have some tangible and some higher level conversations kind of throughout it. So tell me about what it's looked like for you to help transition from these written manuals that you pass along to, kind of what you're doing now.
So a few years back, when we went through a rebrand process with Stretch and Grow, it was one thing, like the business had grown and we had just exploded. And with these growing pains, and anyone who's watching, like if you have more than 5 employees, you've probably at some point experienced growing pains, right? And so we were up to like 40 employees and something needed to change. And I did not have a lot of systems in place. So in addition to our brand being kind of all over the place, I didn't have systems. So when we did the outward facing, consumer facing stuff, I'm like, now is the time to get down to the nitty gritty. So we did some deep dive, granular research with our employees. What's missing? Like, what is the disconnect? We're sending you out, but yet you're quitting after the first month, or you're not following through. What is happening? And you know what I found, Chelsea? It was in our onboarding. We were not fully integrated. We didn't have a defined culture. It was just like, we're Barbies on speed. Here we go. Let's have a good time.
I mean, it's not wrong.
And it's not wrong. And you can act like a Barbie on speed. However, you also have some other responsibilities that you need to do when you're delivering this Barbie on speed experience. So that led me to really diving into instructional design. And I'm at my first job out of college, I was a high school English teacher. So I love teaching, and when I know a thing, I teach a thing. So I started diving in. Why aren't these people learning? Well, they're not reading from textbooks, especially now. Like, if you employ people, the people who are coming to you, you'd mentioned like working with a tutoring company and working on mindset. They're not learning from books. They've learned from Zoom. They're learning from interactive slide decks. This is how they're learning. They're not just reading, so they're getting this digitally rich experience because they're on their phones all the time. So we've got to compete with that. So if you're an employer and you are trying to train your team and you're getting them onboarded and you're integrating them into all the things that you need them to do, what's happening that's causing that disconnect?
Right.
So I came up with a kind of a concept. It's called manuals to modules. Let's see. I'm going to see if I can share my screen here. So we've got a download. So if you're watching and you've got any kind of team that you are wanting to convert, if you've got an employee handbook and you're wanting to convert that, I've got this free checklist. So if you go to m2mchecklist.bethcannonspeaks.com, download that. And it's this manual. There's so much content in it. It looks just like this. There's so much content in it. And you can walk through the process, and and I know, I see that you use Canva. Like, I think you probably used Canva in your video, right? In your opening video.
Yeah.
So talks to you how to use Canva. Another tool I use called Trello. So there's some super fun and interactive tools there that tell you how to deconstruct your manual, how to break it down, and how to create this online training experience, and using all free tools. So there's a lot of hacks, a lot of things on the internet that you can use. You don't have to buy expensive learning management system or anything like that. So I teach you how to do it with all free tools because I'm so passionate about it because I super care about company culture. And it starts with giving them accessibility and flexibility and mobility when it comes to their training. And you cannot do that if you've got a manual and you're sticking them in a supply closet with a sticky farmhouse table and saying, learn now, learn all the things.
Yeah. And then keeping it updated was a whole nother thing.
Oh my God.
Reprint all of them and then put them in their binders and
Absolutely. So when I need to make a tweak, all I have to do is go in, retweak my slide deck. I record the courses. So I create slide decks from the manual, deconstruct the manual, organize it into the slide decks in Canva. I use Canva. Canva is a free platform. It's a design platform. If you're watching, you don't know what Canva is, Google it, go get you an account. And there's so many things you can do in a Canva free account.
Yeah, I pay for mine, but because I use it like all day, every day, but I didn't pay for it for a long time. I use Trello too.
Love Trello. And Trello is what we use to kind of organize all the content before we load it into Canva. And the ultimate the checklist talks about all of that. But if we're not giving them tools that are flexible and accessible, they're not going to take the time to do it. Like no longer does the employer get to say, oh, now I'm paying you and you're all mine. That's not how this rolls.
No.
You want to bring them in. You want to onboard them in a way that feels good. Because if you're in education, for example, you don't have, like, there's no work from home.
Yeah.
No work from home.
You can't take the children with you.
No. And you can't leave them alone. So you have to physically be there. So if you can provide learning experiences that are flexible and fun and make that learning stick, that's what you want to do. So that's kind of where I am on that path.
Yeah. And I think I love like the flexibility of all of that and those types of things. But I think also what you talked about was there is kind of this mindset shift in the way that employees are looking to work with employers. It's no longer about sign this dotted line and give us your time and your soul and do everything we say for only the reason that we said it. It's more about creating a space where they want to buy in, like they want to learn these things and be a part of this team and this experience that you're creating and all of those things. So how would you say this kind of creates that space for that buy-in, more of that mindset shift instead of do this because we told you to, but here's how we can do this together?
Well, I think it starts with just showing them value. Like it starts with showing them that you care. Like this is not just a boom, boom training program. Like we want to start you off with an experience to really help you be a part of our family. So getting the buy-in, hey, we've got this really cool coffee shop down the street. I'm going to give you a $20 gift card because I want you to go and I want you to be in an inspiring space and go sit at this really cool coffee shop, work through these courses, make some notes. You know, you've got some assessments that you can take, and I want you to come back and I want you to feel fresh. And then when you have a chance to interact with them, it's like, well, tell me about it. Like, do you have questions? Like, what are your thoughts on that? Like, you did a training on our core values. What part of those core values really stuck out to you? Like, let me give you some examples of how we live them out. And, and it's that storytelling piece. So you can tell them stories and you can tell them about, you can have these conversations with them that are not, here's the compliance that you need to follow. Make sure that you do it like a robot. So I think it's how you make people feel in the beginning. You get them connected and you make them think this is a really cool place to work. And not only that, my employer cares about me. And so you automatically start off with not just shoving them in a closet, but giving them this experience, I think.
Yeah. I mean, and you're modeling that behavior, right? Because you want them to then create an experience for their children, for the class that they're teaching.
Yes.
And so if you started off by modeling what it looks like to show value as you teach, then you're creating a space for them to show value as they teach, because that's ultimately what you want them to do as an educator, is to give value through teaching, through that engagement. And so creating that foundation of relationship, like foundations and teaching consultants commented right here that relationship is key. And that's 100%. Like, I think Beth and I completely agree on all of that, is that everything comes from that basis of foundation. And then also that sense of belonging, right? And understanding, and that you're valuable and this is valuable. And how can we do this together? Those are all huge huge, huge, huge things. And it's funny that you say stick you in a closet and learn, because when I was way back when I took a job at Primrose, that's literally what they did. They handed me like the minimum standards book and then the Primrose book, handed it to me and put me in a closet for 2 days for me to read this. And if we, as educators, that just makes me sad, because we know that that's not how children learn. And that's not how we learn and retain information. Like what you're talking about is engage with this in a safe setting and then come back and reflect on it and tell me about it, and let's expand on it and understand it. And that's how we learn. And this idea of just, let me hand you a piece of paper, or, pieces of paper, take it, figure it out, come back and apply it without ever having more conversations. And then we're going to hold you accountable for what you did and did not apply. Like, it doesn't make sense. It's such a broken system.
Yes. And they would apply none of the things. Like, I'm consulting right now with the franchise company, and the owner of the franchise, we're working on their onboarding system. And so he's telling me, showing me all this stuff, and I'm like, but how do they get access to that? Well, it's on a portal.
Yeah.
And again, I mean, he realizes that the system is broken, and he's like, this is
right.
why I'm reaching out to you. I need you to help me with this instructional design, because I don't know how to deliver it to them. And I think so many people, like, they have this concept, they have this business, they've got these teachers, and we look at, like I said, what are we doing with popsicle sticks and cotton balls, or, and we're not really focusing on, that's important that they have activities for the kids to do. That's important. But we want those kids to learn, and we want them to learn hands-on. And so how are we helping our teachers learn hands-on? Like, what experiences are they putting them in the classroom and helping them really understand, because we're not performing heart surgery, right? Like we said, experience here, you're not going to run a PICC line in someone.
Right.
You need to know how to do that. If you're trying to find someone's vein, you need specific training in that. But
correct.
In this industry, you're loving on and you're nurturing kids.
Yeah. Which is highly variable. I mean, there's a basis. Every child looks in a general sense this way, but then it gets individualized as you go and how you're interacting. I mean, so it's less, when you do heart surgery, it looks one way every time. When you interact with a child, you have a basis for it, but it's going to look different depending on the setting and the child and all those things. And it just seems that you would want a bit more of that flexibility and understanding, and then application for these types of things.
Yeah. So that's kind of my magic. That's kind of my thing that I've been teaching, for really all summer. It's been kind of my thing. We're doing lots of different podcasts and webinars and things like that, because there's so many free tools out there that people can get access to, that if you're a leader, figure out how to engage your people. And so, and a lot of it starts with mindset. So like Chelsea, I know you're doing a lot of mindset work right now.
Yeah.
So where does that piece, do you feel like, play into when you onboard new employees?
Oh, well, I mean, so much of it we've already kind of touched on, right? It's creating that basis of, when you're from the get-go, we know that this is a basis of relationship, and we're coming in to a valuable place to provide value in other ways. And, so much of it is, I think we talked about last time we were on, like a circular team. So like what it means to have a round team instead of a hierarchical team. And you're coming in from this place of, we're going to be side by side, and we're going to figure this out and serve together, provide this value together. How can we do that? Because like you were saying, it's so rare these days, for, especially in this past year or whatever, for someone to come in and be like, I want you to tell me what to do, how to do it, what to dress, how to smile, when to do these things. And I just want you to say, because I said so, without providing any, like, why we're doing this together, that buy-in point. And that's not really it anymore. I mean, our worlds have all exploded into these huge things of different opportunities and things that we can do, which I think is great, because it's giving some of that autonomy back to the employee and allowing them to kind of make some decisions for themselves. And I think that, in the flip, is holding employers a bit more accountable to how they're engaging with their employee and what value they're bringing. And I don't know. I mean, it's all very similar for me. Like in education, we know that we're making this shift from teacher to facilitator. Like instead of holding all the knowledge and then making them come to us to get it and kind of giving it to them when we want to, we're facilitating their exploration of knowledge. So how are we co-constructing alongside of them? And I think that is kind of a similar concept that's coming into the employee and the employer relationship, is let's co-construct this together instead of, shoving it down your throat from the top.
Right. Well, and I think too that, like you said, that circular, that linear relationship building. You mentioned earlier, I don't know if you mentioned it when we were on or right before we got on, about psychologically safe spaces.
Right. Yeah.
Where we are now, and I do a ton of training inside of centers, and I talk to lots of leaders, lots of education leaders, and there's so much dissension among staff right now because of mindsets over what's happening with COVID.
Yeah.
What's happening with the vaccine. And so we all know, it's the big pink elephant in the room. Mm-hmm. Your political leanings are generally going to determine how you're processing the pandemic.
Right. Yeah.
Maybe your socioeconomic, maybe your demographic, your race, your ethnicity, your religion, your faith. There are so many different things that are playing into how everyone's processing this pandemic. And so one of my big passions is we have to honor and respect what other space people are coming into. You just because, you might want to be vaccinated, I might want to be vaccinated, but guess what? Another person might not want to be vaccinated. So how do we process? We've got this person in our midst. How are we processing this? Are we shaming that person for not getting the vaccine? Or are we saying, well, you're going to have to wear your mask and this is how it's going to be? How are we processing that in a way that we can respect the psychological spaces that everybody is bringing into the world?
Yeah. And that is a lot of trainings that I do. We talk a lot about trauma-informed spaces. It's very similar to what does it look like to create a psychologically safe environment. It's pretty much coming into it knowing that every person walking into that space or that you're engaging with, child, adult, etc., has experienced some sort of trauma. And I won't go down that whole road, but it's pretty much what you were talking about, right? We understand that everybody has a different experience. Everybody's perspectives are different. Everybody's coming in with past hurts and experience and understandings of their own. So how are we then creating a space where they can be safe to have those feelings and have those experiences and express them respectfully inside of a safe space without just knowing that someone else is going to shame them or condone them for whatever, this way or the other way. And that is really hard. And that was kind of the trigger that pushed me into mindset more and more, was because that problem, that issue, creating trauma-informed spaces. Yeah, there's lots of tactical things you can do. Like here's common language and here's this and here's that. But in the end, it's your mindset walking into it. And what does it look like for you to create this for someone else? And that's what really pushed me into that.
We need a common language glossary. Can you create that? Because I will pimp that out all over the world.
Yes. Oh my gosh, that's so true.
We need a manual, because you're right. There are so many triggers from every single side, and people are coming into spaces, whether it's trauma informed or they watch too much news, whatever the reason.
Right. Yes.
We're getting triggered sometimes, and because we're just more easily easily offended.
Yeah.
And
I think that's two-sided too. I think one is yes, what does it look like to have common language in a safe space? So yes. I know that if I'm creating a safe space for you and there's things that I'm not going to say, right? And it's not because I'm worried that it's not coming from this place of fear of offending you, but rather this place of, I want to create a safe space. That's it. Not out of fear, just of, this is what I want to do. I want to create a safe space, and here's what I don't say inside of that. And so many people are saying, you're doing that out of fear of not offending, and people should just be less of a snowflake or whatever. That's not the case. That's not it at all. It's not about that. It's about just creating a safe space, period, the end, full stop. How am I creating a safe space for the other people around me? And so when I was talking with a company or some directors, I can't remember, and introduced this concept of common language. and what that could look like. And it had never been, they'd never heard of this before. And it was just like, this sounds really amazing. And I ended up digging into that with them. But it is so useful. But I think it's really important to remember, like in these conversations, that it's not just I'm doing this out of fear of offending someone. It's because I value you and whatever your beliefs and understanding are.
Yes.
And I want us to be able to come together for a common purpose.
Yes.
And that means we need to bring our opinions and understandings and beliefs into this safe space. And how do we do that? And that, like, I could just dive into that all day long.
It's so important. And I think that leaders, it's not necessarily on their radar because so many other things are on their radar.
Oh,
so
yes.
You're watching when you're a leader, dive into this, because unity in your little community is going to be more important than ever. And you don't want people leaving your organization because they have conflict that has nothing to do with work, with the conflict that they've had with other employees, or different mindsets and things, and things like that. You don't want to lose great employees because they're feeling a disconnect from their coworkers over things that have nothing to do with work. And so yes. I think that's hard to write in a manual too. So I think when a leader can come and give, hey, here's my heart for this. You are loved, you are valued, you're respected. I know that you all are bringing so many different things into this workplace. Let's talk about what we have in common. What are we here for? Because if we can hit all cylinders and serve our customers, that is where we're going to fly. And that's the kind of energy that we want to get. We don't want, we talk about energy. We don't want someone's energy to suck the life out of us because we're bringing up things that, and no one has ever always agreed on everything. And now we have this spaces where we think that everyone should be agreeing on everything, and they're just not going to.
No, and that's not the purpose. I mean, right. We want a varied group of individuals. That's what creates this unique experience that we want to create. So, I mean, it's not about that. It's just about having, having that space. And like you said, it is so often kind of the last piece on, our radars. I know for me, when I was first directing, like all of these things were just way over there because I just had to figure out how I'm going to make sure all the classrooms have 2 teachers in them. And then I can worry about these other things. But in the long run, the reason that I was having such a hard time having 2 teachers in every classroom was a retention issue, which was connected to creating this safe space. And I think it's, I'm guilty of when I was in my first beginning of my directing career, I would say, like, leave your issues out the door. Like, once you come in here, I need you to teach and focus on this. When honestly, we're bringing in a holistic, all of us are holistic, right? So there is a part of like, yes, okay, you had a hard time, let me set that aside and focus on this. But it's not about, I want you to take every part of you that's not directly related to work and set it aside, because that's not a real ask. So it's how can you kind of find that balance inside of that safe space? And it's hard. And actually, I had one of my clients who is a principal for a middle school. We've been talking a lot about this psychological safety, and she reached out to me and was like, can you do a book club? And like, we'll talk about it, because I was referring some books to her. And I was like, yes, that would be so much fun. Like, just doing this book club and digging into this concept in general, because I find so often, I don't know about you, but it's not something that anyone's ever heard. Like, when you talk about psychological safety and creating a common language and trauma-informed spaces, it's less well known than I originally thought.
It's a lot less well known. And I think one of the things that COVID did is it brought up so many things to make us more self-aware. Yes. I think that self-awareness is like a ninja skill right now. And so when we're all self-aware with what we bring to the table, and I love to do things like the Enneagram, not to label people. Yeah. It's just a tool. It's one of many tools that are out there. Mm-hmm. And I use that as part of my onboarding system, not because I want to put a label on them, but because I think that it helps me understand what motivates them, and it helps me understand their fear. So like, are you familiar with the Enneagram?
Yeah, I'm an 8.
Sassy girl. You're a challenger.
Yeah.
But that's good so Chelsea, because you're a challenger, you are a social justice warrior, and you know that, like, you will defend your people. There is a right way, there is a wrong way, and you are the first person to say, oh no, friends, This is not how this is going to go down. Am I right?
Sounds right. Sounds absolutely right. Yeah.
So when I know I have a challenger, when I hire a challenger, I know, like, I need to listen to this person. You know, someone, if they do the Enneagram and they're an 8, I know, A, I've got a leader. B, I've got a strong personality. And I need to make sure that this person is heard. And when they have concerns, we need to say, hey, let's have a chat, because I want to make sure that I've got this person in my corner, because when that 8 is in my corner and we're hitting on all cylinders, you are going to be the biggest proponent of building the kind of culture that we want. But if I don't acknowledge that, and I don't sit down and listen to you, you can be a big driving force of division if there are things that are not right and the leader is not being self-aware and hearing and understanding where you're coming from.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Were you there?
I was not there. Did that happen? No, I was not there.
It was necessary. Okay, I'm just saying.
But you get it. But you know, you get it. So again, I'm a big believer in tools, because tools help us to be self-aware. And I have a course on my website that it's called Dare to Be Self-Aware, and it is the Enneagram test. They take the Enneagram test and they walk through what are some things about my personality that are helpful. And when I go low, where do I go? Because when you're, as an 8, when you're healthy, you're an amazing leader. You know, you're awesome. You get stuff done. I mean, you're focused, you're energetic. But when you're not healthy, you can be negative and divisive and not focused on the big picture. I'm a 3, so I'm an achiever. So when I'm healthy, I can be your biggest cheerleader. I can rally the troops. I can cast a vision and get people to follow that vision. When I'm unhealthy, I can be negative. I can be competitive. I can be whiny. I can be frustrated when I'm not getting my way. So, you know, we all have these different things, the ways that bring us. So again, it's going back to being self-aware, but also understanding your people, because I feel like it's a good relationship springboard to kind of start with.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And I love that you framed it. It's a tool. It's not like the say all, end all, be all. This is who you are. This is all who you'll ever be. That's because that's not it. And there's been organizations that I've worked with before where they do some type of assessment like this, and then everything is related back to that. Well, that's not what this said, or they are this or whatever. And it's not the end all. It's just, here's some more information to help you make a better assessment.
Yes, absolutely. So anyway, those are just some fun tools. But again, no one is reading your rules because you didn't take the time to understand how they process information, and you didn't take the time to build that bridge, either you or your leader, whoever it is, to get them the information so that it's downloadable in their brain.
Yes, I love that. And that's still a great picture of why I'm in mindset, because I think it's also part of the employee's issue or responsibility to have the level of self-awareness to be able to come back to you and say, Beth, I am not retaining, I don't understand what you're asking me to take here, and I'm going to need a different way to go about this. And I think that's an important part of it too, is you need to have that level of self-awareness and to know that I'm not going to be able to do that. Like, I will do my very best, but can you help me learn this a different way, or engage in this a different way, or have some kind of extension to what we're already talking about, and kind of owning that and bringing it on. Chris, on the side here, when you were talking about what an 8 is and what I am, he said that's you to a T, and he took a clip of it, and now it's on my page. Chelsea is sassy. He's been following me and hangs out with me in a lot of these, and he feels very validated by your
Well, Chris, I am so glad that I could provide some validation for you through our friend Chelsea today. We have just laid her sassy pants.
I will take it. I mean, you're not wrong. None of those things that you said, any of them were wrong. So it's totally
as a 3,
fine.
I'm a bossy pants.
Yeah. So
in fact, for my birthday, I had 2 friends that do not know each other that both got me the same notepad that said, I'm not bossy, I just have better ideas.
Yes.
And they don't even know each other.
They're I mean, like, I have this from a friend that hangs out right here, and it pretty much says, they told me I couldn't, and that's why I did.
Boom.
And that's pretty much it. So I'm gonna real quick, because someone was DMing me and I was talking with someone on the side. This is the book that we're gonna do a book club with, or a book, whatever, what did I call it? Book club, yeah. The Fearless Organization, and it's about creating psychological safety in your space. So I was originally only gonna do it with people, with clients, things like that. But if you're hanging out and you might be interested, send me a DM. You're welcome to hang out with us and do that. I want to do some more because I love that conversation. So send me a DM. But Beth, where can people find you, hang out with you, do these things, like jump on this journey of how to get people to understand the rules and the expectations of your organization?
Right. Okay. So I've got a course. It's called Manuals to Modules, and it's on my website. You can go to it's BethCannonspeaks.com/manuals to modules, and that's the actual page for the course. So it's a 10-module course. Teach you guys how to deconstruct your manual, reorganize it into Trello, assign your task, create slide decks, because I think that digitally rich visuals help people to learn. So then you record or teach you how to record your courses, whether your face is there or whether you just voice over it. Teach you about the kinds of videos that you can use and create to train your team. And then, like I said, we've got some options for some done for you slide decks. So that's kind of the fun thing that I'm teaching. But I also do keynote speaking. I do team building intensive. So if you've got a team and you need some team building, that's great. And then I've got some digital courses on my website as well.
And she's awesome. Mostly, all of those things. And you always have the prettiest, like, I remember sitting in your trainings when I was directing, and when you had your slides, I was like, you always have the prettiest slides.
I've learned, 0 people like PowerPoint.
Accurate.
Because they're all the same thing. And if you're seeing the same PowerPoint templates pop up with the same bullet points, and, you got someone who's just pointing, and they're not using, they're not using those visuals to draw people in. That's what your employees need. Like, so in this course, we've got an option to get like Canva slide decks. So there's different slide decks. I teach you how to break it down into like 5 different courses. So anyway, it's super fun. Canva's a great tool. I'm like you. I use it every day. I use it for my slides. I use it for my social media, YouTube thumbnails, all of the things.
I use it all the time for everything. You are correct. So Dr. E.T., if I'm not connected with you, come hang out with me. I don't feel like I've seen you hanging out here before, and you were a lot of fun. So connect with me if we're not already, because you're awesome. And if we are already connected and I didn't know that, I'm sorry.
And connect with me too, because I'm looking at all these things. Yes, I love it. I love the conversations. And you can find me. I'm at Beth Cannon Speaks or Beth Cannon on LinkedIn. I mean, it's Beth_Cannon on LinkedIn. But I'm getting better about hanging out on LinkedIn, like you, Chelsea. I'm getting better about it.
LinkedIn is my jam. That's my favorite place to hang out. So I will rep that all day long to come hang out on LinkedIn. So that's where my people are. Okay. Well, thank you everyone for hanging out. Be sure to go find Beth, follow Beth, do the things. And then really just kind of shift all the mindset, could you please? And like, make sure we take all of that on. Chris says he got another one, sassy pants and bossy pants. He's clipping part of our conversation and then saving that for later use / vengeance.
I will own bossy pants if you will own sassy pants.
I 100% own that all day, every day. So that's fine with me. I couldn't deny it if I wanted.
We can put that on the back of our shirts.
Right? Yeah.
Well,
thank you guys for hanging out.
Thanks for connecting. I know our paths have crossed often over the many, many years that we've been around. And I'm so excited for your journey and just to see all that you're doing. I think you are absolutely qualified to do all of those things. I mean, it's experience. I mean, here's the thing. Can you teach someone something? Can you help change their life? Yes. With lip gloss. Yes.
Right? I mean, that's part of it. Like messy bun, lip gloss, I'm good to go.
I mean, I literally say in my training tools that a messy bun and lip gloss can make all the difference in the world. So this is where I am today. It's messy bun day here, working in my office. And so this was great. So thanks everyone for coming on and watching. It was great to meet you, and let's stay connected.
Bye y'all. Thank you.